So it's not often that I feel embarrassed to admit that I can relate to joy, but that's what happened to me this week. It was during one of our Caring Listener Team monthly check ins. And if you're not yet familiar with our Caring Listeners, they're this fantastic team of people who are there for our Foothills community to offer empathic listening, to offer spiritual support during hard times. And they used to be called parish visitors. You might be familiar with that name. They're also there to offer the caring resources that we provide as a Foothills community. Anything from meal delivery to dropping off a caring kit at your doorstep with items of comfort and ritual, or even to help make sure that whatever your joy or sorrow is named in the Sunday prayer. So that's our caring listeners. They're such a fantastic group of people. And our team was gathered this week for our monthly check in, and we were watching a clip from the Pixar movie Inside Out. This was our way into a conversation about reflective listening. And honestly, I'm personally not very big on kids' movies, but I think Inside Out is a fantastic movie, and it's definitely not just for kids, even though it is an animated movie. And the movie explores the emotional life of a girl named Riley, who is growing up. She's moved to a new place, and she's making a lot of adjustments. And we get to know the different emotions inside of Riley as other characters in the movie. There's joy, sadness, disgust, anger, and fear. And each emotion is its own separate character, responding to different situations, each in their own way. And so this clip that we watched, it involved one of Riley's imaginary friends from childhood, who happens to be a gigantic pink elephant named Bing Bong. And Bing Bong loses a treasured wagon that he and Riley used to play with in her imagination when she was little. And that's when this imaginary friend realizes that he's no longer an important part of Riley's inner life. She's gotten older and she doesn't need an imaginary friend anymore. She doesn't really need him anymore. And the full weight of this loss is settling in for Bing Bong, and he is just bereft. He is shocked and he is immobilized by grief. And so Bing Bong, the pink imaginary friend elephant, just sits down and stares out into the distance, utterly weighed down by sadness. And the other characters look at each other and they do not know what to do because they have somewhere important to be. And Bing Bong was usually so upbeat and fun, and now he's just sitting there. He's staring out into space, lost and mournful. And how are these friends, these two characters, one named Joy and one named Sadness, how are they going to pull Bing Bong out of his funk? Because it's kind of ruining everything, and they have places they need to be. And so Joy, filled with energy, goes and takes the first crack at it. And this Joy character is beaming with all of this upbeat excitement, along with more than a little hint of desperation. And she tells the pink elephant, "Hey, it's going to be okay. Hey, we can fix this." She tries to distract him with tickling and with goofy faces and trying to make a game out of the sad situation. And what happens? Nothing. Bing Bong just sits there. But then Sadness steps forward. And Sadness sits down next to Bing Bong and she places a hand on his shoulder and she names what's true. It's sad. And she invites Bing Bong to go into his feelings and to reminisce until he breaks out into tears and just cries. And after he's felt heard and understood, and after he's had a big cry, he's ready to keep moving. After the clip concludes, we're checking in as a caring listener team, and I ask, who can you relate to in this clip? And I was probably asking because I knew who I could relate to in this clip, and I was not feeling particularly proud of it. On my good days, and with most people, it feels very natural to meet someone wherever they are in their life, to offer empathy, to create a space for them just to have their feelings and move through them and move with them. But for me, when someone who's really close to me is deeply struggling, really witnessing their pain can sometimes just feel like too much to bear. I just want to fix it, or I want them to fix themselves. I feel helpless. I feel afraid. I just want it to stop. I've definitely been known to inform the not okay person that they're actually okay, or it's actually not that bad, or hey, why don't we look on the bright side of things? Anything to get some distance. Anything to get some sense of control in the face of a beloved's pain, in the face of a child's despair that cannot be fixed, in the face of a parent's frustration or grief, in the face of a friend's suffering that's the result of making the same bad decisions over and over, caught in the same patterns. And this kind of response it's very human to resist going there with someone. And it's also not very helpful. If it is true that we get closest to the essence of life, not through the no-self path and not through the all-self path, but we get closest to essence, that is closest to love, closest to God, through the path of relationship and interdependence, then mindfully navigating our own emotional response to another person's struggles, it's not just a good idea, it's a spiritual practice. Because we can only come into the fullness of our own truth. We can only grow our own soul. We can only mend our own life while actively engaging in the undeniable reality of our relationship with others. This dynamic tension between freedom and connectedness, this paradox of individualism and interconnection, it is the beating heart of life's essence, and it is always in process. So, in practical terms then, what does this mean for us? What does it look like to tend to our own heart, tend to our own needs within a context of the complex ecosystem of life and spirit? Well, I want to invite you back into that caring listener training we were in a few minutes ago, looking at how joy and sadness responded to heartbreak. So just hang in there with me because I think this is all going to come together. So we watched that clip as a way of introducing the skill of reflective listening. And you've very likely heard of reflective listening before and are probably familiar with it. It's sometimes called mirror listening or active listening. Reflective listening is being able to identify and reflect back another person's feelings so that they know that they're being understood, and to help them get some clarity for themselves. This can be a very supportive way to help someone process their feelings. And the steps are pretty simple. So first, you listen. You listen without judgment. You listen without planning what you're going to say next. You forget your agenda. You forget trying to solve this person's problem. Just be present and focus on the person. And then, as you're listening, in your mind, try to identify and put a name to their feelings. Maybe it's fear or disappointment or sadness that you're hearing. And then next, when the time is right and it feels natural for you to speak, you can name and reflect back what you hear the person sharing. I hear how sad you've been feeling. It sounds like this is a really frustrating experience. You can say their very words right back to them, or you can paraphrase. And what I find fascinating about this is how good it feels to hear someone reflect back our own words and experiences. It sounds so simplistic, but it's really powerful. It's healing to be heard by someone who is genuinely just trying to understand where you're coming from and what you're feeling. And when we are listened to deeply, something shifts. Feelings can get metabolized. The web of connection moves into a new shape. Now, I don't have some naive or simplistic idea that reflective listening is going to save us all, or that it's the best and only technique for offering someone support. But I'm sharing this tool this morning because it's a beautiful and simple example. It's a beautiful and simple dance that helps us honor the reality of both our individualism and our interconnection. The boundaries in reflective listening are so lovely because the responsibility and ownership of the story, it stays clearly with the speaker. And so the listener offers empathy and support, but doesn't own the message, doesn't own the story, doesn't overreach with unsolicited advice or heavy judgment. And so this exchange between the listener and the speaker, it connects them in with the deeper paradox of the essential. Though we are each our own people, we are all profoundly interconnected and interdependent. And our healing and our interbeing is most fully invited in when we companion each other as discrete individuals, one heart to another, one soul to another, reflecting, connecting, but not merging, holding boundaries that are not walls of steel, but are sites of exchange and growth. May living in the sacred tension between individualism and interconnection heal us and set us all free. Amen.